is what does abundance mean to you?
Well, to me, abundance is pretty simple. There's three things. There's enough, which is in the middle. There's lack, which is on one side. There's abundance that's on the other side. So all it means is plenty. Plenty of whatever it is. Yeah, when I grew up, my parents came from Europe with the proverbial loaf of bread only in their pockets. They had no money. When I grew up, I was basically conditioned to believe and taught that money doesn't mean new shoes, new cars, beautiful homes. Money means survival. If you have a lot of money, you live. If you don't have a lot of money, you die. And so, yeah, we weren't overly abundant in any way, shape, or form. And all I knew is that that was my MO, and so that all my friends wanted to be astronauts and firemen and policemen and baseball players and hockey players, and I just wanted to be a millionaire. I didn't even know what it was, but I said, I have to be a millionaire or else I will die. So I just set out in my whole life to become rich. Left school at the end of the first year of college because it wasn't going fast enough for me. I wasn't rich yet. I was almost 19. For the next 12 years, I did nothing but struggle, which was an absolute shock and an embarrassment to me, because I thought I would be getting wealthy within a few short years, and that didn't happen. I went through 12 different businesses, 14 different jobs, absolutely nothing worked. I spent many too many nights having to choose between putting $5 of gasoline in my car for the next day or eating dinner that night, and I had to choose the gas too many more times. So yeah, I know exactly what, I've never been homeless, I've never been bankrupt, but I know what it's like to not have what you're looking for, especially for someone who really wanted it, desired wealth, desired abundance, and I did all the courses and took all the seminars and read all the books and listened to all the tapes at the time, and still broke all the time. So I think for me the biggest change came when I had been one of these people that I had a belief system that said, if I get into the right vehicle, I'll get rich. And what finally happened was a friend of mine showed me another vehicle and said, you got to do this. He was on the West Coast, I was on the East Coast. He says, I'm killing it. I'm making literally $10,000, $15,000 a month, and I was lucky to make $500 a month. And you got to do this. So I did it, and I realized that after 3 more months, I was still broke, and he was getting richer and richer. And it was the very first time that I looked in the mirror and I go, well, if it's not the vehicle, maybe it's me. And that changed my life, because from that moment on, I recognized that I had some role in this idea of success. It wasn't just the vehicle, the right situation, and the right business. And I just turned everything around. Instead of working on the vehicles, I started working on me. And as I grew me, I started doing better and better and better, regardless of the vehicle. So that's what changed it for me. Yeah, your beliefs are extremely powerful. One of my programs is called the Millionaire Mind, and the whole idea is that rich people think very differently than broke and middle class people. And so, when you think about it here, you go, okay, so there's a formula that we use that's very important, and it says that your thoughts lead to your feelings, which lead to your actions, which lead to your results. So your results originate in your thoughts, yes? But here's the distinction that nobody seems to ask. So what creates your thoughts? Why do you think the thoughts you do and someone else thinks is completely different thoughts? And the answer to that question is conditioning, programming. You learned how to think. You come in as an empty vessel, and then you get all this information plugged into you and poured into you. And that's all you know. That's all you can act from. And so we know what we know. We know what we were taught to know. And then we act based on that. So then what happens is most of us have thoughts and beliefs around money that are learned. Nobody comes out of the womb doing money. We all learned how to do money. And unfortunately, most people were taught how to do money by people who either didn't have a lot of money, had a lot of emotional issues around it, or had a lot of negative habits around it. Their ways of thinking automatically ingrained in us and became our natural ways of thinking and doing. And we don't even know why we make the decisions and choices we make. We just make them based on the best we know how, but the best we know how is extremely unsupportive to success. And so we have these beliefs that just don't work around success and wealth and abundance. And they actually prevent us. Those are the only obstacles. I will say this, there's only one obstacle to your success. And if you look in the mirror, you'll find it. Not in a negative way. You are the only thing standing between yourself and all the success you want. The only thing. There's not a thing outside you that can stop you. And so literally, if people understand that, they know that, so what part of me is stopping me? How am I stopping? Well, it's not your arm, it's not your hair, and it's not your nose, and it's not your knee. It's your mind, it's your thoughts. And so if you understand that your results will originate in those thoughts, then you need to know, if you want to change the result, you need to change the thinking pattern. How do you change your thinking? There's 3 critical steps. Number 1 is awareness. First thing you've got to recognize, observe from a higher place that your thinking is not supportive to success. People go, well, how do I do that? How do I know if my thinking is not supportive? It's common sense. If you believe that rich people are really bad and you want to be a good person, then guess what? You can never be rich. I mean, it's just obvious, right? If you think money is evil, how can you have any of it? If you don't think money is important, you won't have any of it. It's just pretty obvious. But people have these unconscious ways of thinking that it's not hard to figure out that you're thinking something that's negative or not supportive. Once you realize that, the next thing is number 2 is understanding. So number 1 is awareness, number 2 is understanding. Understanding where this thought process, where this belief came from. 3 places we learn about them. Verbal programming, what did we hear when you were young? Modeling, what did you see when you were young? And specific incidents, what did you experience when you were young about money, success, wealth, and rich people? And so we have these ways of learning. If once you understand that this belief, let's say you believe that, you know what, rich people are evil. And a lot of people believe that. And let's say you have that belief in some way, shape, or form, even a little bit. Now you go, where did I get that? I mean, I didn't come out of the womb with that. Where did I get? Well, my grandfather used to always say, rich people make their money off the sweat of the poor, and they should just distribute all the wealth evenly, and they're just evil people. And the boss I had was the worst guy in the world. And you go, well, that's where I got it. And then you can understand. Then your understanding is, well, that's his belief. That's not mine. And so then we can actually re-examine the files we have in our head, and re-examine the ones and say, does this support me or not support me? Not whether they're true or false. See, that's the big thing most people don't understand. There's no beliefs that's true, and there's no belief that is false. You're not going to say something and all of a sudden you're going to see a big red check mark in the sky from God going, that's true. It doesn't work like that. You're never going to see it. So everything really is neutral until you get there, and you turn it into this or that or that or this or et cetera, et cetera. And so there's no such thing as a true or false or right or wrong belief. But there is such thing as a supportive and not supportive belief to get to where you want to go. And so there are ways of thinking that are much more empowering and much more supportive to abundance, wealth, creation, money, whatever it is that you're doing, than not. And so once you understand that that's not my belief, that's my grandfather's belief, I will let him keep that. And now what belief would empower me to do what I'm here to do and live the life I want to live? And so a more supportive belief would be, let's just make one up. Hey, rich people are kind and generous. Again, it can't be true or false, but it's more empowering to say that than they're evil, because you might want to be one of those people. And I personally happen to believe that rich people are very kind and generous. And so, yeah, it's awareness, understanding, and the third thing is reconditioning. And that's a hard thing unless you have an outside force working with you. That happens to be what we do with people. We actually recondition their belief systems, their patterning, right on the spot with high impact exercises and processes. The easiest one to do at home by yourself would simply be to choose 3 beliefs that you know are disempowering towards success. Go to the contrary of those beliefs. I just said one, for example. One might be rich people are evil. And then the other one might be, no, rich people are generous, okay? And then you go to a mirror, and then you actually, we have it, what we do is we have people do it in partners. So you'll switch. If you have a negative belief, you'll switch with your partner. You'll tell your partner your negative beliefs. They will then state that negative belief, and then you will then argue against your own belief. Argue with them. So this way you can do it by yourself. You go to a mirror, and you allow the mirror to somehow say rich people are evil. And now you argue against that to the one in the mirror. You go, are you crazy? Why would you think rich people are evil? That's ridiculous. Because how many people are rich? Well, there's millions. There's actually tens of millions. You think they're all evil? Why would they be evil just because they have some money? And so you begin to argue against it, and pretty soon you just don't believe rich people are evil anymore. The education system, from my understanding, is actually a babysitting system. And so, we needed the parents from the farms to go work in the production and the factories. Since they had kids, there was nowhere to put them. When they were in the farms, it was fine because they could take care of them. But when they went to the factories, they couldn't take care of them. So they put them in baby and kid daycare. They called it kindergarten, all right? And they decided to put schools together in order to take care of the kids. It was never about educating people for the real world. It was always about babysitting. And that's basically what it is today for the most part. And I don't mean anything negative about teachers and principals because they do the best they can, but the curriculum that is given to them is bogus, okay? And so I own one of the largest seminar training companies in the world. The reason I own it is because of that understanding that there's three things that are lacking in our teaching system. Number one is money, number two is relationships, and number three is happiness. Three things they forgot to teach us about somehow, and are just going to skip their whole curriculum guy, whatever. But those are the only things we really need. You can learn on. One of the biggest issues that's happening today in the world, which is really nice, is the biggest discussion in school and education is what to teach versus actually what to allow the kids to research themselves. So do we really need to teach them all about Spain and the War of 1812 and this and that? No, versus can we just give them a research project and say research it and come back and understand it? And what do we need to teach? We need to teach them skills that are prevalent to success in the world. But those things are the three basics that I just mentioned: money and wealth, because without that you got a big problem, happiness and relationships. Well, depending on what the goal and your intention is depending on the steps. But I think one of the biggest distinctions is going to be, there's going to be certain strategies. I mean, one of the programs we teach is called Life Makeover. And the first question you ask is, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want is a very, very important question for everybody. It seems simple, but it's not. You ask the average person, what do you want? You know what you're going to get? I don't know. Well, I wanted that. What I want is on my New Year's resolution list. That's what I want. Okay. And how long have you had the same list? Oh, about 20 years. Okay. Well, obviously there's a problem there. So what do I really want? And the reason that's important is because clarity is critical. Clarity is important because clarity leads to power, and power is the ability to do. If you don't know what you want, how are you supposed to take any action towards it? And the second question that we ask is, why do you want it? Why is this important to you? And the reason that's important is because if there's no big why, Jim Rohn actually said, the bigger the why, the easier the how, which I think is a brilliant statement. And that is, when you have a why that's big enough and important enough to you, the how will start to come. But most people just go right to, okay, how should I do this? But they don't even know if they really want it and why they want it. So one of the things we work on a lot is, why do you want to be rich? Why do you want an abundance of money? What is the reason for it? People go, well, I don't know. Okay, well, guess what? You ain't ever going to be rich. That's the way it works. I'm sorry. You got to have a big enough why pushing you and pulling you and motivating you, etc. And it may not just be for you. It may be to contribute to others and help other people, etc. Whatever that is. But you got to have that why. The third critical question that we ask, that it seems that nobody else asks, is, okay, if you know what you want, why you want it, and it's probably not new for you, why don't you already have it? And people get very upset when I ask them that question. Why don't you already have it? Because all of a sudden the accountability goes where? Right on you, okay? And they can start talking about, my wife does this and my husband does that and my kids take my time and all that. And as the more they talk, the more they realize it's, let's call it, not true. And so why don't you already have it? And here's the problem. The same reason or reasons that you don't have it now is probably the exact same reason you will never have it. And the reason is because we're creatures of what? Habit. And so you will keep on thinking and doing the same thing you've always been thinking and doing, therefore you'll keep on getting the same result. So those are the critical steps. What do you want? Why do you want it? Why don't you have it? Then the next one, of course, what's the strategy you're going to use to get it? A new strategy now. Keep it short, keep it simple, keep it easy. And then the last piece, number 5, is what specific action, the smallest action you can take in 2 minutes from now to move towards that. Because that's important, that it's very small. A lot of people say, well, you got to have goals, big goals and all that. You can have big goals, but you better start really small. I don't think I have to tell you that, what do they say, the Chinese saying, proverb, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. How else could it begin? But people get freaked out. People get very stressed out. And fear comes up for them. And that people say, well, how do you alleviate fear? Well, one way to alleviate fear is to instead of looking at this huge goal right away, is to take a look at the first tiny steps. So let's say I want to build a business that is worldwide and has 1,000 locations. Okay, well, do you have one location? No. Well, I want 1,000 locations. Well, if I was thinking about 1,000 locations, I'd be scared too. Okay, if I was thinking about one location, I might be scared as well. But if I was thinking about, well, what's the very first step that I need to do to even start this business? I say, well, I probably need to learn a little bit more about marketing. Okay, good. That's a great thing to learn about. Well, what's the first thing you do to do that? I guess I could just go on Google and download some marketing ebooks and say, great, how long will that take you? About 5 minutes. Okay, that's a perfect thing to do. So you take this 1,000 location business and you turn it into, all I need to do is take 5 minutes and go to Google and download a bunch of articles on marketing. See that? I'm not scared about that. So that's the thing that people freak out, because they have this gigantosaurus type of image in their head. They go, I'm never going to get there. Well, chances are you won't, okay? Because you're thinking about that. Why don't you just think about what you can do, not what you can't do? Well, happiness is an entirely different subject, really. Money and happiness are not the same thing. And I think everyone has a different definition of happiness, but I think people put too much weight on exterior happiness. And so literally, I'm of the belief is that you were born happy, you stay happy, and you're going to be happy until you make yourself unhappy. And that's a very unusual belief, because people want to put their happiness on, well, when the kids leave, then I'll be able to do this and I'll be happy. And when I make enough money, then more money, then I'll be able to buy this and I'll be happy. And when I don't have to work as much, then I'll be happy. And it's always then I'll be happy. But happiness can only be experienced in the now. Let me say that again. True happiness can only be experienced in the now. And here's the big problem with putting you off your happiness, is that we are creatures of what? I said it earlier, we are creatures of habit. And so here's a quick story for you. When I was young and foolish, now I'm older and foolish. When I was young and foolish, in my early 20s, I lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I was broke, and so I lived in my parents' condominium, and I was the youngest person in that condominium by about 50 years. And I was big into fitness, so I'd run about anywhere from 8 to 12 miles a day, and then I would jump into the pool and cool off and swim a little bit, and then I'd head back. Well, around the pool that I jumped into was all these retired people, older people, 65, 70, 75, all around the pool. And there'd be like 40, 50, 60 all the time. And I didn't care. I just jumped in the pool, cooled off, and went back home. And I always said to myself, you know what, when I retire, I'm going to start to live. I'm going to travel. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to be happy, not a care in the world. That's the ticket. You got to work hard so you can retire. And then I started to, hang out at the pool a little bit more. But it was very interesting that I noticed that every time I listened to any conversation of anyone around that pool, it was always some kind of problem. The health isn't good, or my son-in-law is no good, or my grandkid, hurt himself, or it was problem, complaint, issues, problem. I went, these people aren't happy at all. And then from a magical spiritual moment, download or something, it dawned on me. I said, when I listened to them talk, it was always about their past, and it sounded like they weren't that happy in their past. And it just dawned on me that how could they possibly be happy now if they're so practiced at the thing called misery before? So you cannot be practiced. And you see, whatever you practice makes what? Permanent, right? Whatever you practice, you're going to get good at. If you practice complaining and being miserable and bitching all the time, you practice that, you're proficient at that. And what do you think? One day, you get the gold watch and you retire and you go into your condo. All of a sudden, you go from being miserable and bitchy for 40 years to, oh my God, I'm a happy guy. That's going to be for exactly 16 minutes while the rest of you catches up subconsciously, and then you'll be miserable again. So, practicing happiness now is the only possible way to do it if you want to be happy in the future, because you're a creature of habit. And if you want to be happy in the future, you better start practicing happiness now. Whatever you practice now, you will be in the future. And I don't care how much money you have or don't have, where your kids are at, all those are outside influences that have nothing to do with your happiness. To me, the thing that would help people create the most abundance in their lives is to understand something called your purpose, and putting that purpose out in the world in a actionable way. So bottom line to me, I always think about one thing, and that is solving problems for people. Solving problems for people. Because when you solve problems for people, they pay you. So now all of a sudden you have abundance called wealth abundance. Also, when you solve problems for people, you are of service to them. So you now have that law of karma working for you. You also have the abundance of good feelings that go along with it. So if a real hard element that anybody can do all the time is to actually work and come from a place of solving problems for people. When people ask me all the time, they go, Harv, how do I make money? How do I make a lot more money? I go, well, the first thing is, it's a terrible question, because the only people who actually make money, they work at the mint. The rest of us have to what? We have to earn money. So a better question is, well, how do I earn more money? All right, so let's just talk a little bit about this. So how do you earn money, or how do you earn a lot more money? People don't understand money whatsoever. So first of all, where do you get all your money from? When you ask people that question, they draw a blank. They go, God, universe. Oh, well, try again. Again, I've never sat there meditating on a bunch of money. So where do you get it for cows? You get it from trees? No, where do you get? The only way you can get any money is from other people. The only other elements on this earth that I know of that use a currency called money is people. So now you get all your money from other people. Well, why would somebody give you their hard-earned money? Why would you give it to somebody? Well, the number one reason someone would give you their money is if you do what? You solve a big or little problem for them. For that, they're going to give you their hard-earned dollars or whatever it is that they use. So you've got to be thinking, most people think, how do I make money? That's a terrible way to think. What you should be thinking about is, see, money and wealth is a result. A result of what? A result of someone giving you their money. Why? Because you gave them a solution to a problem, or you solved a problem for them. So instead of thinking about how much money can I make, it's how can I solve a problem for someone in a way that really works. And if you do that, they will give you some money, and now you'll have one little bit of money. Now, if you want more than one little bit of money, you want two little bits of money, you need to do the same thing for somebody else. If you want three little bits of money, you do the same thing for someone else. Now, if you want a lot of money, you do the same thing for a lot of people. So if you solve one problem for one person, that's how you make money. You solve that same problem for 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, you make a lot of money. And that's called abundance. So people are always thinking, how do I become abundant? And I always say to people, stop thinking about you. If you want to be rich, if you want to be wealthy, if you want to make a lot of money, take your focus off of you and put it onto helping other people in a way that really works. Now, of course, backing that up is called a business of sort. So you can structure and organize the way you are helping these people. And if you do that properly, riches come your way. So if I was going to go back to when I was 20 years old, what advice would I give myself? Probably plenty. Some of the big lessons that I learned. Okay, so number one, Harv. Success is not outside of you. You are the root cause of your success, your mediocrity, or your failure. It's you. Okay, and so if you want more success, you need to grow yourself. Number two, Harv, you're not as good at what you do as you think you are. You cannot just get by. If you want to do well, if you want to get paid the best, you've got to become the best. You must be shooting for being the best in the world at what you do. Not second and not third. The best in the world. Why? Because people who are the best in the world, whatever they do, are really, 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 really rich and usually pretty happy. Okay, so you need to do the work that it takes you to that. Number three, Harv, you are scattered. You are all over the place. You have 3, 4, 5 businesses going at once. How on earth do you think it's easy to create wealth in any one business, let alone 4 or 5? Yeah, but you don't understand. What if this one doesn't work? Then I got to have some backups, and I never know if that one's going to work. Well, of course, now I can say it won't work. It won't work because you've scattered your energies. You need to focus on one thing. You need to focus on it. You need to do it well. You need to be the best on it, and do not stop that thing until you do well with it. You must be like the Mongolian warrior. The Mongolian warriors never lost a battle. Why? Because the Mongolian warriors, when they went into battle, what did they have behind them? Everything they owned. They brought everything. Their chickens and their goats and their cows and their children and their wives, everything they owned was right behind the front line. There was no turning back. And they won every single battle. And so those were some of the things that I made big mistakes on that today I hopefully don't make those mistakes, and I can help some other people not make the same mistakes as well. Well, I mean, there's only a few pieces, as I said earlier. The number one key to abundance, especially on the financial level, is you first have to have a mindset that is supportive towards abundance. That's probably the biggest thing most people don't have, is they have all these negative ways of thinking about money, success, wealth, and rich people that are just absolutely non-supportive to success. If I could say anything to anybody, it would be, your beliefs are not true, and they're not false. They're just either supportive or not supportive. And so you might as well, since you're making the whole thing up anyways, you're going to make up a story. Since you're making up a story, you might as well make one up that empowers you instead of make one up that disempowers you. The other big thing is fear. The number one element that stops people from taking the actions necessary that they even know they could be taking or should be taking is fear. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in, and that we teach very specifically, is that you're not going to get rid of fear. Anybody says, I'm never afraid, well, they're probably just sitting in a cave doing nothing. That's not the way life works. As soon as you get into unfamiliar territory, the fear comes up, and it always will, and that's a good thing. And the understanding is that your mind is not the happiness director of your life, and it's not the success director. In fact, it's good at unsuccess, isn't it? Your mind is simply a protective mechanism. That's its job, is to keep you alive. It's a survival machine. And so its only job is to keep you alive and protect you, and therefore it's not interested in what's right in your life. It doesn't care. It only is interested in what's wrong. And so it scours everything in every situation for what's wrong or what could go wrong in this situation. So you wonder why you have this great idea and you're so excited, and then 3 days later you've talked yourself out of it. You've got the doubt. So what if it doesn't work? And I don't even know anything about this, and how am I going to get the money, and blah blah. That's your mind doing its job. It's good at it. And so the biggest problem most people have is this one. They listen to their own mind. They believe that most people believe the voice in their head is God. The voice in your head is not God. The voice in your head is a conditioned, programmed tape of the past that you learned how to survive in this world. That's all it is. It did not talk to you about thriving whatsoever. And it did not talk to you about abundance. And it will not talk to you about abundance. In fact, it might actually talk to you about riches and abundance and going for it in order so you can beat yourself up even more when you talk yourself out of it 2 days later, like you have 58 times before. It's a setup. And so the people who get on in this world and do well are the people who understand their mind and what it does, and they are good at managing that mind. And I'm going to give everybody 4 words that will change your life. Whenever your mind says something to you that is non-supportive to your happiness and your success, do not get into a conversation with it. You will lose that conversation. There's only 4 words you say to your mind when it says anything that's not supportive, anything that's negative. And those 4 words are, thank you for sharing. And then you come back to the present moment and put your attention on what is happening right now. Right now. And then your mind's going to banter in, yeah, but Harv, you have this problem. You better take care of it because, if you don't, blah, blah. Thank you for sharing. Okay. And now what was he doing? Oh yeah, I'm typing this letter. Okay, you can't just put this off because, if this guy's, if he says this, you better have a comeback that, thank you for sharing. You need to train your mind that you will not engage in it. Otherwise, it's got you. And if it's got you, you will be broke and you'll be unhappy for the rest of your life. So either your mind tames you or you tame your mind. It's your choice. Okay, so when I wake up, what do I think about? I think a better answer is what do I not think about? Because my first action is always to think about what I have to do today. And if there's any emails that are important, and check my texts right away. And so for me, the practice is to not think about that. And the practice is to go upstairs into my meditation room and do my meditation and do my exercises and then come down and do whatever I need to do. So for me, it's not about what I think about, it's what I don't think about. And to me, that's become very important because my emails and my text and my phone used to run my life. And that was one of my biggest downfalls. And it took a lot of work and energy to change the dendrites and neurological pathways in my head and change my habit because I couldn't even help myself. Do you know that I used to go check my emails before I used to wake up and go to the bathroom like a normal human being would? It's because, what if there's something there that I have to attend to right away? And I realized how crazy that was when I'm kind of I'm going, Harv, you are insane here. And so I had to change it up pretty quickly, and now I'm in a new habit, and thank God, because I feel a lot better about myself. But do I believe in spiritual concepts? Absolutely. I know that for my own fact because, I've written many programs that have been channeled programs, whereby I would never use that word normally to a group of 5,000 people. But, when you don't know what you're writing and you read it, a day later and you go, who wrote this? It's pretty spectacular. And there was a point in my life when I had the biggest insight of my entire life based on what people would call woo-woo. And that was when I spent the early portion of my life thinking about one thing, becoming a millionaire. That's what I was taught. And I wasn't happy. And so I ended up, being in my early 30s, and I started to have money, and I still wasn't happy. And so I decided that obviously money and success and business, that whole route isn't a route to happiness. And I had been studying personal development and Zen and Buddhism for a long time. And I really connected with the philosophies, not the religion, but the philosophies of the Buddha. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to go this route. This is the route, the spiritual route. I'm going to become a very spiritual person. Forget about the money and the business. I'm done with that. I just want to be happy. And so literally I worked with a Zen Buddhist monk for many years, and I was, believe it or not, I was preparing to live on the monastery and become a monk. And I was doing this for about 3.5 years, and guess what? I wasn't happy. And I became incredibly frustrated and disappointed in myself because I'm going, oh my God, the whole money and business thing, that's not making me happy. And the whole monk thing, now I'm not happy there. I'm lost. What do I do? I got nowhere to go anymore. Which way should I go? Should I go the money and business, or should I go the spiritual route? Which one? Money or spirit? Money or spirit? And I had an experience. whereby I was just close my eyes and I was bantering about this to myself, money or spirit, what do I do, what do I do? And this voice came right through me, and it was kind of like in my head, but it was directly, and it said, Harv, get a Post-it note and a pencil. And I have lots of Post-it notes and pencils around, and it just said, so it was like my mind, but it wasn't my mind. It said, write this down. And I wrote it down. And I didn't even know what I was writing down. And then I looked at it, and it said, embrace both sides of yourself. And that moment changed my life, because I finally realized you could have both. You could have money and spirituality and blend them beautifully together. And I think that's what I intend to do. That's what I have done. That's what I teach people to do. And so my big message to people is you can be kind, generous, loving, giving, balanced, and spiritual, and really, really rich.
إن أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والاشتراك في القناة.